On Monday, the 3rd of June 2024, organized labor embarked on a nationwide strike to demand a higher minimum wage for workers. This action led to the shutdown of the national grid and power supply across the country, which was disrupted, resulting to a nationwide blackout. However, reactions are still trailing the shutdown of the national grid as a violation of the rights of Nigerians. In many countries, laws and regulations prohibit strikes that disrupt essential services, such as power generation, water supply, and health care. Workers in these critical sectors often have alternative dispute resolution mechanisms to address their grievances without resorting to strikes that harm the public interest. In Nigeria, the Cybercrimes Act 2015, as amended, Section 5, subsection 1, therefore criminalizes disruption to critical national infrastructure. The law prescribes a punishment of a term of not more than 10 years without an option of a fine. From aviation to power supply, seaport, and public health care, Nigeria's economy was brought to its knees due to the strike. It was also reported that the country's economy lost an estimated 113 billion naira to the shutdown of the national grid alone, leaving the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, struggling to restore power supply to homes and industries. Joining us via Zoom is public policy analyst, democracy advocate, Arthur Magnus Unyibe. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the Breakfast Show.
Yes, thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigeria.
Let's get your perception of what organized labor did by shutting down the national grid to perhaps ensure that the government understands that it wasn't joking when it was demanding, or when they are demanding, for an increment in the minimum wage of workers.
Yes, what happened was unfortunate, but it happened. They felt that was the best way they could get government to pay attention to them. But as the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume pointed out, what they did could amount to a treasonable felony. As you just pointed out, there are laws forbidding people from tampering with such critical assets. And unfortunately, that happened. I believe, that as I heard in the president's speech, I guess, he asked the security agencies to step down, to stand down, and not harass workers during their strike action, but they went to the extreme of shutting down the national grid, perhaps because they had gone on strike in the past and they didn't have as much effect. And now they thought that they had to do something that would create a total chaos that would make government pay more attention. As I said, it's unfortunate, but it happened.
And when you look at the fact that an industrial action is the right of especially the labor unions to register their concerns in a democratic dispensation, what other options should have been explored apart from the strike? Let's also consider the fact that there is an injunction in the industrial courts as regards this case.
Yes, apparently the workers got desperate, and as I pointed out in my article, in my column this week on Tuesday, I noted that the labor activists got temperamental. They really did not want to listen to anybody, so they crossed the line. Unfortunately, like I said, this government, the current dispensation of President Bola Tinubu, is accommodating, but it was dangerous what happened. Because also, I don't so much blame labor, because it was possible that they couldn't have gotten access into such critical assets. They shouldn't have had access into them. The government should have protected them already, even without labor people threatening to go there. They are critical assets all over the world. They are highly protected. They're like Fort Knox. But unfortunately, ours have been porous, just like our borders and every other thing. It's been lax. So I was pleasantly surprised or, impressed that a couple of days ago, I heard an announcement on radio by the police, warning people to stay clear of those assets. So I believe that in the future, if there's any strike, strikers or protesters would not have access to such critical infrastructure again. But there are other ways of resolving this thing, which Labour has, tried to apply, by engaging government. And government too had, when the last 5 years period, that was given for the minimum wage to be reviewed, elapsed, ahead of the time, government set up a 37-man committee, and they've been meeting over it. But unfortunately, because of the series of things that have happened lately, especially arising from the reforms and the skyrocketing costs, Labour has become implacable. And, if you saw the last change in 2019, it was not even a 100% increment, but now they're asking for, I can't even imagine the number of addition that they want is ridiculous. When they started, 500,000 naira as minimum wage. Who can pay that? When the economy is not productive. I believe that, wage should be based on productivity, but unfortunately that's not the case. They are basing it on inflation. And, they may be right, that the inflation has eaten into the 30,000 naira that's being paid now. But I believe government was also gracious to add 35,000 naira, even if it's not permanent, it's for a period, just to be able to tackle the hunger and hardships in these present times. But asking for, 250,000 naira is still a lot of money, because what had happened in the past was that government, before the present government, the last administration, was borrowing money to pay salaries. And that's part of the reasons that there's so much inflation. The ways and means, printing of money that happened, that's close to like 30 billion right now. It's from there, So if government is pushed again, or, government gets compelled or whatever, and decides to pay the 250, you can imagine that we'll go back to ways and means again and begin to print money.
Well,
you know what that
Labour is not interested from their position as it is with regards to if we have to borrow to pay the monies. For them, government officials have allowances that are covering their own expenses, and so the average Nigerian should have something substantial as well in this current situation. But we will address all of that when we return from this break. Stay with us.
Okay.
The new Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. So, no need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish and energize your kids. Milo 3-in-1 is such a smart choice. Milo, energy to go further. Milo!
Thank you for staying with us. We're still looking at organized labor and their demands for an increase in the minimum wage for the Nigerian worker. We have speaking with us before we went on the break, public policy analyst, democracy advocate, Arthur Magnus Onyibe. And Magnus, I was saying that Labour on its part is saying that government officials they have their own, perhaps what we may term, the monies they have to spend on whatever thing they want to do as it is, and that the average Nigerian worker needs something substantial so they can also be able to live above board as it is, or to live above water when you look at the economic situation. What do you make of their position with regards to using what perhaps the National Assembly members are receiving as salaries and allowances as a yardstick for their demands?
Yes, generally, I would say, the argument you're making about salaries and stuff like it's emotional. The point is that, there's a distrust between the workers and government that has been established. And what could have solved the problem was if there were facts and figures to support the fact that government has enough money to pay them 250,000 naira. That is not there. National Productivity Center could have been able to bring us such figures. I'm not even sure it's operational. I just tried to click on their website and it's saying not open, and stuff like that. So those facts and figures should have been put forward for the workers to see, to be able to determine whether the productive base of the country is enough to support 250,000 naira per month. But I totally, I also understand, their concern that people in government are feeding fat, in quotes, because they are concerned about the salaries and emoluments of the National Assembly members. I guess that's what you were trying to allude to. Also, the people in the executive arm of government, that they are probably profligate. People keep referring to the length of their convoys and stuff like that. But people should also understand that when you see these long convoys, they are actually not all government functionaries. They are probably business people who are following the governor or the minister or the president. They are supporters. All those vehicles are not fueled by the president's office or the governor's office. Most times people should be able to identify that. Then, secondly, I totally agree with Labour as well that we should cut down the cost of governance. It is very high. As a matter of fact, that's why some people are saying we should go back to parliamentary system because they believe it's less expensive. But let us not throw away the baby and the bathwater because the parliamentary system also has its challenges. But I think that what should happen is that there should be facts and figures to be able to marshal out this argument. Labour people are matching their salary against the US dollar, and they're saying that it's like $20 or thereabout or something like that. And the government side is saying, oh, we don't have the money to be able to pay you this amount of money that you're asking for. If you ask for this type of salary, we may have to scale down the workforce, and a lot of people will not be employed because they'll be relieved of their jobs since government does not have enough money to pay. And as you said, Labour doesn't care whether government goes to go and borrow. The Labour should care, and you should care. If government goes to go and borrow, the economy will go bust.
So do you think that perhaps Labour should look in the direction of negotiating from the stance of cutting down on the cost of living as it is?
Absolutely. That's what, I've been harping on. That, I think it's a little bit selfish on the side of Labour to always come out, go on strike, and cause mayhem when it comes to their salaries. There are other terrible things going on in the society, in the economy, that they are not protesting against. So why? Okay, so if the costs have just crept up now and it's creating all this mayhem, there are other things that have been happening. There's corruption. As I pointed out in my article, apart from politicians, public servants, civil servants who constitute labor organizations are also very corrupt. We are aware of a lot of, grafts going on. Has labor union, NLC, TUC, organized labor come out to call out those people? Have they initiated any programs to be able to nip this kind of things in the bud? Do they have whistle-blowing, arms? Have they set up, an arm within the NLC or TUC that would, focus on activities of government and see how malfeasance can be nipped in the bud? The federal government on its own, under the presidency, has set up an app, and that office is led by Hadiza Bala Usman, and that app is for people to monitor government activities and point out when there's malfeasance. Those are the kind of levels that we should begin to go to and let them breathe on government from the presidency to the legislative arm to be able to reduce this cost. And I'm sure, that, or I believe, I'm expecting that in the next budget cycle, government will look at all these issues. Because look, I pointed out that the very critical part of a society that indicates whether we're imbibing democracy or not is what I may refer to as the fifth arm, and which is the civil society. And they have developed over time. There's budgeted, there's citizens, and there are so many others. Looking at facts and figures. That's how come you and I know this cost. That some people are complaining that they're spending 90 billion to augment Hajj, for instance. They spent 40 billion to buy vehicles and whatever. It's all these organizations that are bringing out this kind of facts. And I mentioned it, and somebody said, "Oh, those people cannot do anything." They can't do anything. They are not law enforcement agencies, but their own is to shout and to protest. That is what democracy is about. It's about protest. If you don't like something, you express your displeasure, and that will put government under pressure to adjust. We put government under pressure not too long ago. The president had to cut down people on his entourage, and I'm sure he's going to do, or I expect that he's going to do much more along those lines. But one very important thing that government is not doing is that it's not communicating well enough to the people. The people, Nigerians are not difficult people. People keep saying Nigerians are difficult. I know some leaders are saying that the country is difficult to lead. But unfortunately, they are not communicating with the people well enough. If you communicate with Nigerians, Nigerians can be carried along. And I give you an instance. When Nigeria wanted to take the IMF loan, under General Ibrahim Babangida, and it was debated. Nigerians turned and said, "No, we will do the structural adjustment program, and we will take the pains. After all, it's going to lead us to a better future. So we're ready to make the sacrifice." And they went about doing that. That was because they bought into it. They were convinced, based on facts and figures, that government threw out. This is a military government. They went that far to carry people along. But this time around, nobody is carrying Nigerians along. They're just being given directives, or they wake up and see that things have been unfolded. And so they're very, very, upset. They don't understand what's going on. People will be ready to make sacrifices if you carry them along, if you convince them and they buy into it. And, if we, don't accept this new policy, that government has introduced, that we have to get out of the hole. We have to stop being buffeted. We have to start, becoming more productive instead of, just enjoying subsidies that will take us nowhere. This government has been bold enough to say they want to remove these things, and they have done removal of some of them, and they have returned some so that it can be, not too hard on people. Some people are complaining, "Oh, they boasted that they have removed the subsidy. Oh, they brought it back." Okay, so they should take it out so that everybody will die. They are trying to manage it. It's a difficult thing to do, so they're trying to manage these things, but people have to be carried along. People have to understand that they're doing these things in their best interest. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem to have been communicated to Nigerians. So they are very, very, upset and really, want something.
And talking about the fact that we need to carry Nigerians along, some would argue that this move by the NLC is a sort of mechanism to ensure a change among the larger part of the population. That's through the minimum wage. But according to what you said earlier, are you saying that due to the cost of inflation and food security, other challenges that we are facing, this increase in the minimum wage may not have as much effect as it should?
Absolutely. Like I said in my article, that even if government decides to pay 250,000 naira, I can tell you that in 3 months, what you were buying with 30,000 naira, you may not even be able to buy with 250,000 naira. Inflation will follow. That's what happens. Take Germany, for instance. In 1923, Germany went bust because the world insisted that Germany had to pay reparations for the cost of war, that it created. So it was paying. But in 1923, thereabout, it defaulted. And there was so much pressure. In fact, France, one of the victims, moved into Germany and started seizing the factories and stuff, so there was strike. And people were not working. They shut the place down. German mark moved from 250 in January to 200 million in November, less than 1 year. That's the rate of inflation arising from shutting down the economy, arising from strike. But in Europe today, Germany is the best economy. In the whole of Europe, is the most thriving economy because they went through those challenges and they rose above it and they learned from the experience and they became very strong. The same thing applies to Nigeria. Let me give you another instance. Sometime during the reign of General Olusegun Obasanjo, during the reign of President Olusegun Obasanjo, they sanctioned Lagos State government for creating local government areas. And the state government had to look for all sorts of means to be able to raise funds. And right now, that economy is the most buoyant in Nigeria. They're generating up to 260 billion, whereas the other states are doing far less. So challenges come up. So what this administration is putting us through, if they get us to buy into it, is to prepare us for a greater future. We are in a tunnel right now, but we can see light at the end of the tunnel, especially if we follow through. But if we don't follow through, we will go back to ground zero. So it's sacrifice that we have to make. All of us are feeling it. And the people should be asking the people in government, the three arms of government, the executive, legislative, and judiciary, who just got moved up, to make sacrifices as well. And perhaps, in the next budget cycle, you will see those sacrifices happening because you have to do as I do, not as I say, but they're just asking us to do what they want us to do now. And we are all complaining and they're saying, okay, I bet you are doing this or you're doing that. Government will probably have to begin to come out to let the people see the sacrifices that they are making as well, so that everybody will buy into this whole project of moving us from this challenging situation to a better situation. Every country that has become, buoyant, rich, comfortable, went through sacrifices. The US did. Singapore did.
All right. Our time is up, unfortunately. We can no longer continue this conversation, but we must thank you, Magnus Onyibe, public policy analyst, democracy advocate, and author, for your time on the program. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.